Okay, so chapter 3, we actually end up skipping chapter 2, moving on to the visual elements and principles of art. So we're going to talk about the visual elements first in this lecture. So the visual elements of art are basically made up of the following list here: line, shape, mass, space, time, motion, light, color, and texture. So line, we're going to start off with line. This is probably the most used of the visual elements. It's our primary visual means for recording and symbolizing ideas, observations, and feelings. Extension of a point wherein length dominates over width. That's what a line is. Path of action and lines in space are principal elements in the piece that McCall makes, You and I, Horizontal 3. So we'll take a look at that. Anthony McCall's You and I, Horizontal 3 from 2007. It's an installation piece. Actually, this is just a still image of it. So Anthony McCall's work uses line and light to create interactive spaces, and the lines in the space are the principal elements in his piece, You and I, Horizontal 3, which is figure 3.2 in the book. Moving points of light make up this work, and he basically sets up projectors to send bright images of lines into sloping dark screens. So when people pass through the space, they actually interrupt the lines and also end up altering the work. So it's actually kind of an interactive piece in that way. Viewers interact with them as they move through them. And I found a video that will kind of show us a little bit about his work. I'll put that in the content area. So lines can express emotion or indicate direction or define boundaries. It can be used in a lot of different ways. They can be grouped in ways that help depict light and shadow. Lines can produce patterns and textures, so they're really versatile. So we're going to take a look at some of the characteristics: active or static, aggressive or passive, sensual or mechanical. They can define boundaries. They can be grouped, like I said, to depict light, shadow, patterns, and textures. So here's some line variations. This is a diagram here. So here's an actual line, an implied line. So this is not a real true line in the fact that it's a series of dots, but it's an implied line. The line is implied here. So these are straight lines that imply a curved line. So they're all stacked in a way that creates this implied curved line here, because there's not actually a line that's curved here, but it does imply that imply a line. So line created by an edge, so the edge of the black or the edge of the white creates a line. Vertical line, this one here. Horizontal line. And horizontal lines give you the attitude of rest. So if you see a horizontal line, it has the feeling of rest. A vertical line has more of an alert attention to it, that feeling of alertness built into it. Diagonal lines are a little bit, they can kind of imply action or motion. And the more diagonal it is, it can kind of vary the amount of action depending on the angle of the diagonal. So sharp and jagged lines are kind of also can imply movement and maybe an agitated state of mind. Dancing curving lines suggest movement or sensuality. So curved lines are very sensuous. They're also called curvilinear. And then here's a hard line and a soft line. The soft line is nicely blurred. And here is a ragged, kind of irregular line. So not necessarily a really smooth, typical line that you're used to, but still a line nonetheless. So there's just a couple different types of line there. So here we go with a slide of two Japanese artists. They're woodblock prints. They are similar in subject matter, but they use line in radically different ways. So the kabuki actor, figure 3.4, on the left is more curvilinear, uses more curvilinear lines, and it suggests a slow, rhythmic motion. The actor on the right, though, has more angular lines, which express a swift and violent motion. So you can see same subject matter, even similar colors and everything, but one is more gentle, feminine, looks like a little bit like she's moving a little bit slower. And then the quality of this line is much more angular, which is much more violent in a way. So violent motion versus slower motion here. And that's just with the use of line. So implied line, here's a piece that has an implied line kind of built into it. Implied lines are created by these visual connections. So Andrea de Leon, Tobit Burying the Dead from 1640s, oil on canvas. It's fairly large, 50 by 68 inches. The figures in the lower foreground form a triangle with the head of the man dressed in white at its apex. So we can see here he is, the guy in white, the triangle, the apex of the triangle. So you can see there's kind of a line, different lines created here with the figures down here at the foreground. Part of the triangle's other side is formed by the sight line of the dog as it looks upward at the figure in white, who is thought to be Tobit. So here his little head is facing him. So really people's sight lines can create lines in the piece. Or animals too. The figures above the other triangle also kind of create another triangle. And the baseline consists of the floor of the building they stand in. So here we go, the second triangle up here. So you can see even his arm is creating the edge of a line, this triangle here. So we have basically two triangles built into this piece. And in this painting, the artist used implied lines to divide up and organize his composition. Okay, next up, shape. The words shape and mass are sometimes used interchangeably, but they mean different things. Shape is the area within the outline of an object, whether it's 2D or 3D. When we see a three-dimensional object in natural light, we see that it has mass or volume. And so things with mass have height, width, and depth. If the same object is silhouetted against a sunset, we may see it as only a flat shape. So geometric shapes, they're precise and regular. They're most often made with the help of tools. So circles, triangles, squares are all geometric, and geometric shapes are commonly made by man, although some geometric shapes do exist in nature, such as like snowflakes or crystals. Organic shapes, this is a different type of shape here. Organic shapes are irregular, often curving or rounded, and they seem more relaxed and informal than geometric shapes. Most shapes in nature are organic, such as stones or a winding river or a bending branch. So organic shapes are definitely much more free-flowing, whereas geometric are typically made with the use of tools by man. And biomorphic is another type of shape, and they're based on natural forms. Okay, so when shape appears on a picture plane, which is the flat picture surface, so we have picture plane here, it simultaneously creates a second shape out of the background area. The dominant shapes are referred to as the figures or positive shapes. So we'll talk about that a little bit more. And background areas are ground or negative shapes. The figure-ground relationship is a fundamental aspect of perception, and it allows us to sort out and really interpret what we see. So we'll take a look at an example. So which shapes are positive and which are negative? Because we're conditioned to see only objects and not the spaces between or around them, it takes a shift in awareness to see the negative shapes. And artists really do consider both positive and negative shapes when constructing a composition. So I would say in this piece, probably the positive shapes are the black. So the more dominant shapes are black. And then the negative shapes or ground shapes are the white. And actually they did create shapes using the negative spaces, really, which is kind of unique. So you can really see that star here and the square here. So we're going to talk about mass. It's a two-dimensional area. Actually, a two-dimensional area is called a shape, but a three-dimensional area is called a mass. Mass has height, width, depth, as I mentioned earlier. When mass encloses a space, it is called volume. So we're going to look at this piece by Fernando Botero, The Horse, from 2008. It's bronze. It has a very large height of 134 feet. And it's in Mexico, Plaza Centenario in Monterrey, Mexico. Fernando Botero created a bronze horse of immense mass for the public monument in Mexico. The four legs look like strong pillars. The body has this really inflated look, and the legs are straight up and down, and the head points towards the ground. So the form of this horse does not interact with the surrounding space. The head goes straight down, the four legs go straight down. So this sculpture is a good example of a closed form. The form is very closed because it doesn't interact with the space around it. It just is very enclosed in how it's interacting with the space around it. And Fernando Botero is a very famous artist in Latin America, and I actually have a video on him that I will put in the content area.